ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time when the world around you moves so fast, so loudly, so wildly, that you begin to wonder if the chaos outside has somehow entered your inner space. You try to hold your ground, but every demand, every expectation, every pressure feels like another wave crashing against a fragile shore. And yet, deep within every human being, there exists a place that does not shake, does not break, does not bend to the storms of life. The problem is not that this place is missing. The problem is that most people have never learned how to return to it. In a world that constantly pushes you to react, to rush, to prove, to chase, stability becomes a forgotten art. We mistake distraction for rest, noise for progress, and pressure for purpose. But there is a form of stability that isn't about controlling life, avoiding difficulties, or pretending everything is fine. It is about discovering the inner architecture that remains untouched, even when everything around you feels uncertain. The truth is, chaos is not the enemy. Chaos is a teacher. It reveals what parts of you are solid and what parts you have built on shaky ground. And if you listen closely, you will start to recognize that stability is not a condition of the world. It is a condition of the self. Blean. Some people spend their entire lives trying to fix the external world so they can feel balanced internally. They rearrange relationships, change environments, chase achievements, all in hope that the outside will finally behave. But stability does not come from the environment behaving. It comes from the mind awakening. When you understand what your energy attaches to, what your attention feeds, and what your emotions follow, you begin to see that the real battle is not with the chaos of life, but with the chaos you allow to live inside you. And once you stop feeding that inner chaos, you realize something powerful. Stability is not built. Stability is uncovered. And every day, life sends you small invitations to return to yourself. A moment of silence, a breath you didn't notice, a thought you question instead of obeying. These are doorways back to your center. And when you start stepping through them, something begins to shift. You stop fighting the world and start understanding it. You stop reacting blindly and start responding with clarity. You stop being pulled from every direction and start standing from a place that feels grounded, calm, and unshakable. Stability is not about resisting the storm. It is about becoming someone the storm cannot move. And the moment you experience that for even a second, you will realize that unbreakable stability was never something you had to create. It was something you had to remember. Stability begins when you stop trying to control the world and start understanding yourself. Most people spend their lives pushing, pulling, rearranging everything around them, believing that if the environment finally calms down, they will feel peace. But the world has never promised anyone calmness. It moves in cycles, in storms, in waves, and no matter how hard you try to manage it, it will continue to behave according to its own nature. The mind becomes exhausted when it tries to fight what is not meant to be controlled. And the more you try to stabilize the outside, the more unstable you become on the inside. There is a moment when a person realizes that the real work is not in the outer world, but in the inner landscape. When you begin observing your thoughts instead of being ruled by them, when you start noticing your triggers instead of reacting instantly, when you question your habits instead of accepting them as your identity, something shifts. Understanding yourself is not about labeling your personality or defining who you think you are. It is about uncovering why certain things disturb you, why certain people affect your energy, why certain situations. The answers are rarely out there. They are always within. Lean. Once you begin this process of inner understanding, the external world starts losing its power over you. Someone else's mood no longer dictates your peace. A sudden change no longer throws you off balance. Often change no longer throws you off. An unexpected challenge no longer makes you collapse internally. You begin to see that everything outside is temporary, but your inner foundation can become steady if you choose to strengthen it. Control becomes unnecessary because clarity takes its place. And when there is clarity, there is direction. And when there is direction, the chaos around you becomes nothing more than movement while you remain anchored in yourself. Chaos only shakes what is not rooted. Strengthen the roots, not the surface. So many people focus their entire energy on appearances, how strong they look, how confident they seem, how unbothered they appear. But the surface can lie. The surface can be polished, repaired, decorated, or disguised. Roots, however, cannot pretend. Roots reveal the truth of your stability. If your roots are shallow, even the smallest disturbance can pull you off your center. But if your roots grow deep inside your principles, your discipline, your self-awareness, and your sense of direction, then even the fiercest chaos becomes nothing more than noise passing through your life. You can watch a tree during a storm. The branches may bend, the leaves may scatter, the trunk may sway, but the roots stay grounded. That is why the tree survives. Humans forget this. They try to strengthen their branches, their image, their reputation, their emotional reactions, without realizing that the real stability comes from what cannot be seen. When life begins to shake you, it is not punishing you, it is revealing the places where your roots are weak. A harsh word exposes insecurity. A sudden loss exposes attachment. A difficult decision exposes fear. Chaos is not the cause of your instability. It is the mirror showing you where your foundation needs to grow deeper. And this, strengthening your roots, means paying attention to the parts of yourself you often avoid because they feel uncomfortable. It means being honest about your fears, your impulses, your emotional patterns, and the beliefs you inherited without questioning. You cannot build depth if you keep running from the truths within you. Depth is created through patience, through understanding, through consistent small actions that reinforce who you are at your core. This requires silence at times, reflection at times, and courage at all times. The world will always have storms. People will change, situations will shift, unexpected challenges will arise. If you depend on the outside to stay steady, your peace will always be fragile. But when your roots are strong, your stability does not rely on circumstances. It comes from a place the world cannot touch. And once you recognize that your strength was never in how tall you stand, but in how deeply you are anchored, chaos stops feeling like a threat and begins to feel like a test you know you can withstand. Your attention is the doorway to your inner stability. Guard it with discipline. Most people believe their peace is stolen by circumstances, by difficult people, by sudden problems. But the truth is far simpler. Peace fades when attention is scattered. Whatever you give your attention to, you give your energy to. And whatever receives your energy begins to shape your inner world. This is why a mind left unguarded becomes a doorway through which chaos freely enters. Not because chaos is strong, but because attention is untrained. Menged, there is a silent cost paid by everyone who allows their attention to drift without awareness. You scroll without intention, you react without thinking, you absorb emotions that were never yours, and slowly your inner space becomes filled with noise that you did not invite, but also did not reject. The world is constantly calling your attention through screens, conversations, conflicts, fears, comparisons. If you do not decide where your attention goes, everything else will decide for you. And when your attention is pulled in 100 directions, your inner stability shatters piece by piece. Guarding your attention is not about avoiding the world. It is about choosing what deserves the privilege of entering your mind. Some thoughts may knock loudly, demanding that you worry about them. Some people may push their emotions onto you. Some situations may try to drag you into their chaos. But attention is your gatekeeper. If you do not open the gate, nothing enters. If you open it with awareness, only what nourishes you finds its place inside. Alienability is built when attention becomes intentional. A person who knows how to direct attention becomes powerful, not because they control the world, but because they control where they place their energy. When you choose to focus on what builds you instead of what breaks you, your inner space begins to transform. Suddenly, small problems lose their power. Drama has no place to land. Stress finds no space to multiply. You remain centered, not because life is calm, but because you are not feeding anything that disturbs your balance. There is a simple truth: where attention goes, your inner world follows. If you focus on fear, it grows. If you focus on strength, it grows. If you feed insecurity, it expands. If you feed clarity, it deepens. Attention is the most valuable currency you possess. Yet most people spend it carelessly on things that offer no return. Guarding your attention requires discipline, but discipline is not restriction. It is liberation. It frees you from becoming a hostage to external distractions. You begin to observe instead of absorb. You begin to respond instead of react. You begin to separate what is yours from what belongs to the world. And slowly, a sense of stability rises from within, not because life becomes less chaotic, but because your mind no longer opens its doors to every disturbance that passes by. Stillness is not the absence of noise, it is the mastery of response. Many people imagine that peace comes only when the world around them becomes quiet, when problems are solved, when relationships behave, when responsibilities pause. But life does not work this way. Noise is a constant companion of existence. Challenges appear without warning. People bring their emotions, their expectations, their storms. The environment rarely offers silence, and yet there are individuals who walk through chaos with a calm that feels almost unshakable. Their secret is not that their life is easier. Their secret is that they have trained themselves to master their inner response instead of waiting for the outer world to soften. Stillness is an inner skill, not an external condition. It begins when you recognize that noise becomes disturbing only when it enters you. A loud room is not the problem. It is the mind that absorbs everything without filtering. A conflict is not the problem. It is the heart that reacts before understanding. An unexpected challenge is not the problem. It is the nervous system that panics from old habits. When you begin to understand this, you stop blaming the noise and start strengthening the one who is listening to it. There is a moment when a person realizes they do not need life to slow down in order to feel grounded. They need to slow down internally. They need to learn how to pause between what happens and how they choose to respond. That single pause is where inner stillness is built. Without that pause, you become a product of reaction, pushed, pulled, shaken by everything around you. With that pause, you become someone who witnesses before acting, someone who breathes before speaking, someone who chooses awareness over impulse. But stillness is not softness, it is strength. It is the ability to stand firm even when emotions rise, when pressures stack, when situations feel overwhelming. It is the power of clarity in the middle of noise. It is the discipline to not let someone else's mood enter your spirit. It is the understanding that not every thought deserves your belief, and not every feeling deserves your obedience. When you master response, You take back ownership of your internal world. To master response, you must first observe yourself. Notice the moment your chest tightens. Notice the instant your mind runs ahead. Notice the shift in your breathing when something triggers you. These small signals are invitations to practice stillness. They show you where your reactions come from, where your old fears sit, where your unhealed parts still speak. Instead of running from these moments, sit with them, study them. Because the more familiar you become with your own internal turbulence, the easier it becomes to dissolve it. Man, stillness is born from understanding, not suppression. Suppression is pretending you are calm. Stillness is being calm because you understand what is happening inside you. Suppression hides emotion. Stillness transforms it. Suppression resists the noise. Stillness welcomes it without letting it disturb your center. This level of internal mastery does not appear overnight. It comes from repeatedly choosing awareness over impulsiveness, presence over panic, intention over habit. And something remarkable happens as you practice this. The world does not suddenly become quiet, but it loses its ability to invade you. You begin to carry a space within you that remains untouched no matter how loud life becomes. People may speak loudly, but they cannot shake your clarity. Situations may shift suddenly, but they cannot steal your grounding. Problems may rise, but they no longer dictate the rhythm of your spirit. You move through life with a calm that does not depend on the world behaving a certain way, because the real source of your stability now lives inside you. When you detach from external validation, you become unmovable. For most people, stability breaks the moment their worth becomes dependent on how others see them, how others treat them, or how others respond to their presence. Approval becomes a silent addiction, feeding the ego with temporary highs and devastating lows. One compliment lifts the spirit, one criticism destroys it. One moment of praise gives confidence. One moment of rejection steals it away. This is the trap that keeps so many people emotionally unstable. Not because the world is unpredictable, but because their sense of self is built on something that can be taken away at any moment. There is a deep kind of freedom that begins the moment you stop searching for yourself in someone else's eyes. The moment you no longer need someone to reassure you, accept you, validate you, or applaud you, something powerful happens within. Your energy returns to you. Your decisions become lighter. Your emotions stop being dragged from one place to another. The inner conflict that once lived inside your chest begins to fade. Because when you detach from external validation, you no longer live as an actor performing for an audience. You live as the author of your own inner state. But detachment does not mean indifference. It does not mean you reject love, connection, or appreciation. It simply means these things no longer define you. You can enjoy them without depending on them. You can receive them without losing yourself in them. Detachment is clarity, not coldness. It is the recognition that your value is not a negotiation, not a vote, not a reflection of anyone's temporary emotions. It is something inherent, steady, unshakable. When you understand this, people's reactions towards you begin to lose their power. Their approval becomes pleasant but unnecessary. Their disapproval becomes noticeable but harmless. To reach this state, you must first understand why external validation controls you. Somewhere in your life, you learn to measure your worth through responses. Maybe through family, through society, through relationships, through the fear of being misunderstood or rejected. These patterns become internal scripts that run automatically, pushing you to seek reassurance whenever uncertainty appears. But the mind becomes calm only when you stop negotiating your value with the outside world. Tamja, unbound. You begin reconnecting with yourself, your intentions, your depth, your inner voice. When you act from alignment instead of insecurity, something shifts. You start asking different questions. Not will they approve, but is this true to me? Not will they like me, but is this what I believe? Not will this please them, but does this honor my inner direction? And the moment you start choosing truth over approval, the world stops being able to shake you so easily. People often fear detachment because they think it will make them alone, misunderstood, or disconnected. But the opposite happens. When you no longer perform for approval, your relationships become more authentic. People see your real self, not the version crafted for acceptance. Your presence becomes stronger, quieter, more grounded. You stop bending to fit someone's expectations. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You stop inflating yourself to impress anyone. You simply stand as you are, and that kind of presence attracts the right people effortlessly. Emenge, external validation loses its grip because your internal validation becomes complete. You know who you are, what you value, what you stand for, and what you refuse to shrink for. Even if the world misunderstands you, you do not lose your center. Even if someone withdraws approval, your spirit does not collapse. Even if you face criticism, it passes through you without shaking your foundation. Because your stability is no longer built on the shifting opinions of others, but on the unchanging truth within yourself. And once you reach that place, you become unmovable. You walk through life with a calm that comes from knowing that nothing outside you has the authority to define you. You stop chasing validation and start attracting respect. You stop seeking approval and start embodying clarity. You stop living through the eyes of others and start living through the truth of your own being. True stability is rediscovered, not created. It was within you all along. From childhood to adulthood, people are taught to search outward for strength, clarity, and balance. They look for mentors, for rules, for routines, for environments that promise a sense of order. They spend years building systems, structures, habits, identities, trying to manufacture stability as if it were an object that can be constructed piece by piece. But inner stability was never something you had to build from the outside. It was something already present within you, hidden beneath layers of fear, noise, conditioning, and unexamined beliefs. The journey is not about adding more to yourself. It is about uncovering what was always there. There is a quiet truth that most people avoid because it requires honesty. The deeper you go inside yourself, the more you recognize that peace was never dependent on your circumstances. It is only your attachment to circumstances that makes peace appear absent. The more you cling to what is temporary, the more unstable you feel. The more you chase what shifts, the more exhausted you become. But beneath that layer of constant chasing exists a core, a steady, silent, grounded part of you that has survived every hardship, every heartbreak, every storm you have ever faced. You do not need to build this core. You need to return to it. This returning begins slowly, not through grand actions, but through moments where you meet yourself without distraction. A moment where you feel a breath fully. A moment where you hear your thoughts without running from them. A moment where you understand why something affects you so deeply. These moments are small, but they reveal something essential. The distance between you and your inner stability is only the distance between you and your own awareness. Stability becomes clouded not because it disappears, but because your attention drifts away from it. Every time you react without understanding, you move further from it. Every time you absorb someone else's chaos, you disconnect from it. Every time you try to control what was never yours to control, you forget that stability was inside you, not in the situation you were trying to fix. The work is not to build stability outwardly, but to remove what covers it inwardly. Mondian. When you look closely, the things that shake you most are reminders of where you are still attached. A harsh word shakes you because you attach your worth to opinion. A sudden change shakes you because you attach your safety to predictability. A failure shakes you because you attach your identity to achievement. But when you examine these attachments with honesty instead of fear, you begin to see that the instability comes not from life, but from the stories your mind holds onto. When those stories dissolve, stability rises naturally. Glad. Returning to your inner stability also means understanding the difference between the voice of fear and the voice of truth within you. Fear is loud, urgent, demanding. Truth is quiet, steady, unrushed. Fear pushes you to act quickly, to react, to panic, to cling. Truth invites you to pause, to observe, to breathe, to respond with clarity. The more you practice listening to the quiet voice, the more you realize it was never absent. You were simply listening to the wrong noise. Boundless rediscovery happens when you are fully present. The mind cannot drag you into imagined futures or painful pasts. Presence brings you back to the only place where stability exists, this moment. And in this moment, you begin to feel the underlying steadiness that has carried you through life without you noticing. Every hardship you survived, every challenge you overcame, every uncertainty you navigated, these were not accidents. Something inside you guided you, held you, anchored you. That same force is still there. Being there as you reconnect with this inner foundation, something profound occurs. You stop depending on life to be gentle in order for you to feel okay. You stop expecting people to behave perfectly before you feel calm. You stop waiting for clarity to arrive from the outside. Instead, you begin generating these qualities from within. Even in noise, you feel a quiet center. Even in chaos, you sense direction. Even in conflict, you maintain composure. Even in uncertainty, you feel grounded. The rediscovery of inner stability also changes the way you move through the world. You no longer rush from fear, but move with intention. You no longer speak from insecurity, but from awareness. You no longer react emotionally, but respond consciously. Your presence becomes heavier, not in burden, but in depth. People feel it. Situations respond to it. Life aligns differently around someone who is anchored inside, And gradually you realize that stability was never about becoming something new. It was about returning to what you have always been: steady, aware, capable, and complete. The world may shift, but your inner ground does not. The noise may rise, but your clarity remains. Challenges may come, but they no longer define you, because the stability you sought outwardly has finally been uncovered in the one place it always lived: within yourself.